We've got everything washed up from the stir and drop cookies, and now we're going to try brownies. Does anybody here like chocolate? I knew there was someone. The brownies are going to be made in a thing called a double boiler. 2 pans put together, and in the bottom you put some water and put the top in it. And the reason why we do this is because there's going to be chocolate in it, and chocolate burns very easily when it's right on top of the fire. Chocolate comes in these little squares, and it isn't like the chocolate that you eat in a chocolate bar. If you bit into this, you wouldn't like it. It is bitter. In brownies, you need to have your oven turned on at 350, and you need to grease the pan, and we'll do that in a minute. It calls for 2 squares of unsweetened chocolate, 1/3 cup of shortening, 1 cup of sugar, 2 eggs, 3/4 cup of sifted flour, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 cup of chopped nuts. Okay, we'll go on. 2 squares of chocolate. Now, when you want to measure butter, it comes in a stick, and 1/3 cup is sort of the size of an egg. And you cut it off about that much. That's 1/3 cup. We'll take this butter and chocolate over to the stove and melt it. And I want you to put the handle of the pan in, because if you have it out here, a little brother or sister might come along and knock it off and burn themselves. And you can remember for a lifetime to do that too. And let's leave that there and melting while we get the other things measured. 1 cup of sugar. So we want to sift our flour before measuring it, and then sift it again with the baking powder. 1/2 teaspoon this time, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt that we don't pour over the sifter. Okay, there we go. Now let's look and see whether the chocolate is melted. Now I have to take that with a hot pad because that's warm. You see, it's all melted there. And the first thing I'm going to put in is the sugar, because if I put the eggs in, they'd cook in that hot chocolate. I guess I need this underneath. I don't want to put that on my counter. Now it's cool enough I can touch that. 2 eggs. And the flour and baking powder and salt are all together. And again, you have to go sort of slowly because it puffs up, flour does, just like powder. And give it its last stir so that everything is mixed up. Now that I have that done, I want to grease the pan a little bit so that when we get this out, I take a little margarine in my hand and just grease it just like that. My hand's nice and clean because I washed them. Now here are the nuts, 1/2 cup. Just to go quickly, I'm going to put them in my food chopper. If you don't have a food chopper, you can just break them with your fingers. Put that into soak and it'll be all ready to wash. And push it over in the corners. Then, you know, the best part is that I can just use my finger to take it off the spoon. And if your brother or sister's around, you can really make a friend. And these cookies take 30 to 35 minutes to bake at 350 degrees. In 30 minutes, out come the nicely baked cookies, using your pot holder so that you're not burned. Always remember that, it's important. And the breadboard on the surface because it's very hot. Now, bar cookies, and that's what brownies are, need to be cut while they're still warm. And then we'll cut them the other way. What is better than brownies? Now we've got our plate of the drop cookies already. And the first one's hard to get out because it's sort of in the center there. And those are wonderful.